Welcome back to Wrench. This is episode 4 of my 1969 911S Blasphemy build. This is kind of an odd intro to make because I've actually already made the episode. It turns out that I must have hit something on my camera. I'm not a camera guy. It switched it from auto to manual. So a lot of the shots I used in the upcoming scenes were blurry and unusable, which is a total bummer. What I'm gonna do is still take you through the entire process. To catch you up on the build, this was a race car that was built by a father and son team in 1994. They had a falling out. The car sat completely engineered, ready to go as a race car for 25 years. Never seen the road. It is all brand new fabrication. I'm now taking this car and turning it into a really, really cool street car. If you want to see what it looks like, check out last episode, episode 3 of the Blasphemy build for the concept drawings. In this episode, I'm working on the front end. I've received my quarter panels and fenders from Restoration Design, but the problem is that because this car was a race car, it has this huge air intake for oil coolers at the front of the car. Consequently, the fenders don't bolt up the way they're supposed to. They're too wide. In fact, the front end is sort of cupped in a hourglass shape, and I can't get the fenders to sit flush. So on this episode, I'm going to trim the mouth of the air intake, and then that's going to help me fit the front bumper on, and then trim and modify the chassis so that the fenders fit the way they're supposed to. Before I do all that, I have to clean up the front bumper. I had a front bumper that was essentially the bumper that was on my originally 1969 Grey Ghost build. It was a polo red 911T. And I still have the original bumper from that was in very rough shape. It had rust spots in each corner. It was still covered in 50-year-old paint. So I wanted to get rid of all the paint, get all the scraping done, and repair the rust panels. Next, I'm focusing on the back of the car where there are metal standoffs to support the huge GT2 fiberglass wing that was part of the original GT2 body kit this car came with. And I need to cut those off so I can get the actual, let's see. And I need to cut those off here. And I need to cut those off so I can get the deck lid to sit where it's supposed to. But to begin, let's start cleaning up this bumper. So I've got some aircraft paint remover. If you've never used this stuff, it stings when it gets on your skin, so I highly recommend you throw some duds on so that doesn't happen. I'm going to put gloves on and some eye protection as well, but I'm going to try to strip this thing down to bare metal. I don't have a ton of this left, so I might have to go get a little more, but I'm going to start with this, and once I get it most of the way done, I'll strip it down to bare metal so I know what I'm working with and start the rust repair process. Alright, after about 40 minutes of cleaning and scraping and sanding, I have a pretty clean bumper, at least on the front side. I didn't bother grabbing any of this stuff because I'm going to be cutting it out. But it did reveal some situations here. I've got a fair bit of rust here on this edge. I think I can preserve this. And I've got some on the exact same edge on the other side. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to run and get some more paint stripper so I can do the entire inside of this bumper. And while I'm doing that, I'm going to hit the outside with some rust converter. So basically any spot that is dark on this bumper, I'm going to hit with some rust converter while I go get the paint stripper. And I'll let that do its thing for a few minutes. I've got a lot of options. Basically, all these are phosphoric acid based. So you paint it on, you let science do its thing, and then you're ready to roll. So as you saw, I just decided to paint the whole thing. There's a whole bunch of surface rust on this. So I'm going to let the whole thing bake for about 5-10 minutes. Then you rinse the whole thing off with water, and hopefully all of your rust is converted. So now that my bumper is somewhat cleaned up, I have to navigate around all of this custom duct work that prior to this was feeding oil coolers and will now be feeding my radiators. But the problem is that the bumper hits right around here. So I'm going to size the bumper up and mark it to cut, and then cut so I can clearance the air dam, and then kind of get the bumper kind of mocked up. But I can't do anything while it's blocking. So time to measure and cut, baby. Bumper is roughly fit. I think it looks great. So next plan, I've got to deal with these fenders. If you can see this, you see how this is bowed out here? It's out by about 1/2 inch. So I'm thinking that this spot right here is where this is supposed to be. So I'm going to work out how to move this channel just over that much so I can get the bumper, or get the fender rather, to sit where it's supposed to. That's my next task. To do that, I may just literally cut out like a 1/2 inch chunk here, and then move, cut along this edge, and then move the entire thing over until this thing sits flush. Because once it sits flush, I can move the bumper to where it's actually supposed to be and figure out where I'm going to fabricate brackets to mount it. Because right now it's got nothing. They're just sort of hanging in midair, and there's empty space. So I'm going to pull these fenders and start working on it. But it looks cool, finally, with the front bumper on. It's exciting. All right, so my battery died while I was in the middle of that cutting and fabrication, but as you can see now, I have a great straight line. So what I had to do is I had to notch out. If we look at the other side, I had to notch out like this and then release this whole side from about here down so I could bend it in. Because what you can see is that this nose contacts before the back. So I've got this big gap, and then it closes. So I have to move this inboard to about this 1/2 inch line, which is what I did on this side. And now I've got a nice straight line. This is bolted in. The gap is great here. If I shut this, I can't shut this door all the way, but the gap is going to be really great there. And the gap looks really good down here. I'll end up making a bracket. I haven't decided what I'm doing with this front latch panel area. I'll probably see if I can have Restoration Design send me the OEM latch panel and see if I can somehow integrate it into this front end so it looks fairly OEM. So the plan now is do the same treatment to this fender, get it bolted up, and then remount the bumper and figure out kind of where it will live. Note to self, don't grab steel once you've been grinding on it, because you'll burn the living crap out of your fingers. All right, after a lot of fiddling, I've got another very straight gap, and this fender is roughed in, which I'm stoked about. Now I want to see if I can get the bumper to clamp on properly. All right, dudes, there we go. I am really pleased with this fitment. This thing is great. I mean, it needs it needs a few millimeters here and there, but for the most part, it is great. It is spot on. I'm really excited that I'll be able to put the radiators in these spots. And I will probably cut out a mouth in this bumper here to allow the air to go in and flow through the radiators, and then it'll go back out through some ducting that I'll probably duct into a hole here. But yeah, feel good. I think it looks great. Let me throw the hood on, even though it's a short hood. All right, that's with the hood on. It's looking good, huh? Now obviously I've got to have a long hood that will go down from here. I don't have the hood yet. And I'm going to work on putting the maybe OEM latch panel across the front and then doing some kind of filter on that. But really excited. I think these things came out great. These Restoration Design fenders are awesome. What a treat to have like a new piece that fits really well without having to muck with it too much. And so tomorrow I will work on this, get rid of these pieces so this thing sits flush, and then it's on to work on these quarter panels and see how we get these things to fit. Okay, that is it for the day. Really excited about the progress on these fenders, and we'll see how far I get tomorrow on the rear deck and then the quarter panels. This is one of the sections that got lost in the shuffle. There were these metal standoffs so this huge GT4 wing could sit here in the right spot that this guy had fabricated. So what I did is I took a grinder and ground the entire inside edge of it, wedged a little bit, and then I was able to move it back and forth until the entire piece came off. So this little dagger was mounted here. The good news is this left a really nice surface for me. What happens is this quarter panel fits over this section and creates that channel for your rear deck lid. And this is really nice. I'll be able to completely drill this out, spot weld it on, it'll be perfect. Right now I'm actually waiting for a rear latch panel from Restoration Design, as well as a front latch panel, just so I can mount things the way they're supposed to be mounted. I'm actually not going to weld the panel up until after I get the engine in, because I don't know what I'm going to do with that yet. Ideally, let me show you guys kind of what I think is really cool about this engine. The way this thing has been fabricated, it's got a pin in the back, and then these two bolt holes, so you can actually remove the engine right from the back. I would love to be able to continue to preserve that. So if I'm able to weld this thing on and then still fabricate a bracket that allows me to slide the entire engine out from the back, that would make the removal process so much easier. So I'm going to try to keep that if I can. And again, this is how this thing goes. And now the deck lid closes like it's supposed to. And it's flush. So you can see how much room I have to move this entire channel, which then has to sit over here. But it's going to get done. I'm super excited about it. And then I can't wait to show you guys what I'm going to do with this rear deck lid and the modification I'm going to do to it. After all the cleanup and the welding and the rust repair, this is what the bumper currently looks like. Now I'm probably going to get this thing sandblasted, but for now it's really nice to see what happens and what dents are here and what I need to fix. But here are my rust repairs. There's one here and one here on the other side. These aren't completely done yet. I still have to, let's see if I can show this. I still have to hammer the lip that goes here and get it to tilt up. But I think once it's done and I do a little bit of body work, you're not gonna be able to tell there are any holes there. I will obviously weld up this hole as well, but I'm excited about how this thing turned out. I'm an amateur welder at best. I will be taking care of all of these holes all the way around and smoothing out the entire bumper so it's one awesome smooth piece, and I will definitely take you guys through that process. That is it for this episode. Next episode, it's time to start tackling these quarter panels and figure out how I'm gonna mount them to the car. I've never done anything like that before. I am a little intimidated by it, I'm not gonna lie, but I'm excited to get this body into completely awesome shape. So I'm glad you're here with me. Please hit that notification bell every time I do a new video. You'll be notified, and tell your friends about this build. It's gonna be fun. All right, see you next time.